All right, it's official. We're recording. Welcome to the, I think, 35th ever knowledge drop. I always guess when I say that at the beginning, but I think I'm right this time. And this one's a bit of a weird one. We just got asked by a lot of people how the Rickshaw Run went, and we decided to kind of share our version of that via a knowledge drop. So hopefully you guys are entertained and you at least get some stories. I feel like whenever I have like a crazy adventure or something, I'm not that great at telling people the stories of it afterwards. I'm just like, look at my Instagram. It was, there's some pictures. But hopefully this helps catch people a little bit on what we were doing when we were gone for 2 weeks. And if you've never been to a knowledge drop, there's a chat box which you guys are all using, so it seems like you figured that out. There's also a question and answer box. If you have a question that comes to mind, we'll hopefully have time at the end, so you can pop those in there. And like I said, this is getting recorded, so you can watch this again and again, like every night before you fall asleep, like an episode of Friends, if you want. Or just share it with friends that have mentioned the Rickshaw Run, whatever you guys want. But I'm going to jump into screen share, and let's bake them away, toys.
That's it. I'm not sure that's a phrase, but we'll go for that.
Bake them
okay,
away,
welcome, guys. All right, we'll take them away. So we are dropping some knowledge on how to semi-successfully drive a rickshaw down India and what we learned along the way. So what we're about to drop, it's pretty much an overview of the event. If none of you guys have heard of this before, I'm not sure how many people have heard of this. We'll give some advice on what to do, what not to do, the most surprising facts. And why we're dropping it is we all just came away from this experience deeply impacted by India and its people. And then also we did a lot of things wrong. So we want to help you avoid that in the future.
Boom. Willy boy.
All right. So what is the Rickshaw Run? So this is an event put on by the Adventurists, which is a company that puts on a bunch of extreme adventures around all over the world. This particular one was the 10th year that they've done it, but you compete with 80 other teams to drive around 2,700 kilometers across India. They give you a start and a stop and a rickshaw and no other information that's really helpful other than to avoid Pakistan and to maybe not drive at night. So each team is required to raise some money for charity, which was one reason that we were really attracted to it. And Trav's going to talk a little bit about that. But the race spans 2 weeks. And after the kickoff, you cross your fingers and they hope to see you 2 weeks later at the finish point, which changed over the course of the trip.
And this is us, the guys giving this knowledge drop. I think most of you on this call know one or two or maybe all three of us. You can read our strengths and weaknesses over here. Some of my favorite things over here are Will's weaknesses. I don't know, just give this slide a look. It's pretty funny. But yeah, we had a great time. Great team. Go team. Also, so this was the route. I don't know if you guys have been to India or how familiar you are with the geography of it. Basically, we started in the pretty far northwest corner of the country, so really close to the border of Pakistan. We could have easily driven over the border of Pakistan in our first day if we'd gone the wrong way, basically. But we went from there south along the west coast. The original endpoint was supposed to be Kochi, but due to some of the worst flooding they've ever had in the region, they changed the finish line to Bengaluru. So we ended up having to kind of figure out a different way to get to the finish line partway through. And we drove far. For geographical context, if you're from North America or know that part of the world better, it's basically like driving from Montreal to Miami. So if you can picture driving a little, lawnmower that far, that's what we did for 2 weeks. And then just again on the charity aspect, which was great, and part of the reason I think we were all super excited about the event. The Adventurists partner with this organization called Cool Earth. If you've never looked into them or looked them up, I really recommend just giving them a quick Google. They're a really great organization, great cause to support. And they asked all the teams to raise £1,500. So we far exceeded that. We actually got a shout out at the welcoming party for being one of the top 3 teams in terms of fundraising. So if any of you guys listening or watching this video later donated, big thanks. We did pretty well with the fundraising. And Cool Earth does a really good job of kind of helping to support the environment, basically protect the environment in indigenous communities around the world, where they basically empower the communities to sort of protect their backyards. So they do it in a really cool way too. I really like how they go about what they're doing.
All right, so this is our rickshaw, which we ended up naming, I think, Bo Pelini. Don't ask us why, I don't know. That was the name we came up with. So if you've never been to Southeast Asia and seen one of these things, pretty much there's 3 seats on it. So the front is what's driving. It is a 7 horsepower engine. I think a Prius has like 140 horsepower or something like that for a little bit of context. It goes about 35 miles per hour max on a good day. That's if you're on the highway. I'd say average speed is closer to 20, 25 miles per hour for the most time we did this. They're known to tip, so they don't have great steering radius, and there is little to no leg room on these bad boys. And we found out later they're pretty much only meant to stay within city limits. Driving from different states throughout India is not recommended in these. Yeah. And this is actually something the Adventurists sent to us prior to show you how seriously they take all this in terms of what to expect when driving it. What we didn't realize is it's a manual transmission. So there's 4 different gears that you drive through. That's the left-hand side where you see the clutch. But yeah, you can tell how it's like high, low beam, both crap. The horn only works some of the times for us. Lights on and off, the choke ignition. They gave us a quick rundown on how to use it, but it was not very insightful.
All right, so this is a typical breakdown, like a breakdown of our day. No pun intended. But basically, we woke up at different times each day. It kind of depended on where we wanted to get to and how much estimated time it could take. But Jarrett always woke up first because the night before he would take every single thing out of his bag so that he took the longest to get ready in the morning.
Makes
so
sense.
while Jarrett was getting packed, Travis and I would go down and pack the rickshaw. We would put like our 2 big bags on top, Jarrett and mine, and then we put Travis's guitar in the back so that it could repeatedly hit us in the head the rest of the day. So that was awesome. We broke the shifts into 3 days or 3 parts over the day. So we pretty much would all drive a few hours. I always got stuck driving at night for whatever reason, which is always the most fun part. But most of our day consisted of chai holes, which is our name for a chai stop, which is really just a reason to give the rickshaw a break and also to kind of just like enjoy what the locals do, sitting down to have a tea. Actually, chai means tea. So every time you said chai tea, you were just saying tea, and it was kind of a funny mess up. But it was one of our favorite parts to like every time we would see one cool, we would pull over, stop, have a cool or have a good one. And they would usually cost like 5 to 10 cents for 3. And then we'd have a lot of gas stops because we would drive till we run out and refill so that we didn't get officially stuck anywhere. We got addicted to these things called, I think they're called water pows, but we called them wapows. And it's pretty much just fried like veggie ball that they put inside of a roll with a chili. And it was amazing. But yeah, I mean, the one coolest part is like we had random stops all the time. So we tried not to have an agenda for the day. We would try to shoot places, but everything would always take longer. We would always have things come up that, we didn't want to kind of pass up. Cricket matches, lunch with strangers, waterfalls. And then once it started to get dark, we would try to find a place to stay, asking around hotels, trying to get good prices to see the rooms. And then a hilarious ending to each day, which is like our one real meal of the day, which we called a mush push because everything in India is essentially mush that you eat. And we just push it around the plate, getting different flavors and always ordering the wrong thing. So it was a good time.
Delicious mush. So good. Cool. So yeah, hopefully that gives some context and I guess more like paints a better picture of what we were actually doing for the last 2 weeks when we were in India. But we really wanted to kind of take this knowledge drop in a little different of a direction than normal and just sort of do some storytelling and kind of fill people in. So we figured we would start with what we imagined the most frequently asked questions would sort of be from people in terms of hearing about the 2 weeks out on the road. And then we just turn them into like sort of sections to tell stories around. So the first one we're going to jump into is just the biggest challenges of the event and of the 2 weeks. And yeah, this picture is great. Oh, by the way, all these pictures, Jarrett Nixon. So give it up and follow him on Instagram or whatever. But this is pretty typical actually. We went through a number of big cities and, we just plowed our way right into Mumbai. And yeah, it was really challenging. The night that we actually went into Mumbai, I ended up driving and there was probably like 8 or 9 lanes of traffic trying to get onto a bridge that was reduced down to just 1 lane because of construction or whatever. So I just stalled out probably like 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 times. I had no idea. I lost track entirely. It took about 2 hours to get onto the bridge. And that whole time I was just stalling out, semi-trucks honking behind me. I could have easily like reached out on both sides and just like touched the 2 cars on either side of me because that's how small the rickshaw is and how busy and like just smashed together everybody was. But anyway, just like really tense driving moments like that where the last thing that you want is somebody honking behind you and it'd be like a semi-truck just blasting you. But we did it. And I think we all actually ended up getting pretty good at driving this thing as time went on and all felt pretty comfortable in city traffic. But it's definitely not easy. And there's cows everywhere, which I think we'll talk about in a second too.
This was definitely a challenge. Not as much for me because I was never the one actually filling the gas, because I would step out and take pictures.
This picture is very normal because Jarrett was always just filming it, never doing it.
Yeah, well, anyway, someone had to take the pictures. But the funny thing about the rickshaw is they don't have a gauge to show you where you stand gas-wise, and you always have to mix in the right amount of petrol with the 2T engine oil. And so for us to accurately do that, we figured we'll just refill every time we run out of gas. So that's how we knew we were out of gas, is just run out of gas no matter where we were. So that was pretty challenging. Smart. And then we'd have to take that gas tank into the hotel rooms with us every night, even though we pretty much just would put one hotel room and be sleeping like 3 people to one bed and have a petrol tank right next to our faces. It's quite interesting.
You still doing this, Jared? I think this is you.
Okay, sorry, I thought as well. Well, and also we had a few different breakdowns. This picture is from a moment that we put diesel instead of petrol into our tank, which definitely don't recommend doing that. It wouldn't start at all. We got fairly lucky though, because we did that right in front of this mechanic shop, and it took a couple hours, but they siphoned all the gas out of our tank. Another tuk-tuk driver came up and helped us. He wanted to do it all for free. We insisted that we pay him a little bit for his services. But it was definitely something where we had a flat tire, we had another engine failure near the end. A lot of times our gears wouldn't catch. So it was just something where we kind of adapt based off of the situation we're in.
But I think this breakdown, like the night that this picture was taken, is probably one of our favorite nights of the whole trip, just because it was really, we had one of the best meals right after, and I don't know, the whole thing was just super like a fun situation.
The funniest part about that is every given moment that you stop, whether it's for gas or a breakdown, there's always 15 or 20 people around you within seconds. Yeah. And you got to learn to cope with it really quickly, because it's going to happen regardless. And it can be very easy to just get super stressed out by a bunch of people shoving their hands in their engine, but they just want to help. So that was cool. But another really interesting part is dodging animals. There's tons and tons of stray dogs and thousands of cows, which, as most people know, is the sacred animal of India. And they rule the road. I mean, like, there's already no rules to the road, but there would be times driving through cities where there's just like 5 cows lying in the middle of a highway, and they're holding up the traffic. You definitely have to be careful going around them, but it was just such an interesting variable added on that we just like couldn't control, of cows leading to so much careful driving and so much more traffic than needed. But they rule the country. I mean, honestly.
They're so gentle. Wait, what's the thing we learned about why they're sacred, or part of why people love them?
I was going to say that, but I couldn't remember it. I think because they don't, because of all the things they can provide you with.
Yeah, they're just like giving.
And they don't ask in return. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They don't.
Cows are awesome. Yes, go cows. This is another great picture.
Yeah, this was hilarious. This is the day that we were getting ready to leave. While Jarrett and I were waiting for Travis's flight, we went to go deck out the rickshaw. So we got, what do you call them? Like pads for, I guess you'd call it like a steering wheel, but it was more just like, yeah, the sides of it. And then we embroidered the couches also for some cushions, which was awesome. And got some knee pads because it's very tight back there. But this was I was just loading it up, and there's just a cow 7 feet away from me, which was pretty normal. Most times we were packing up the car.
That was another mini challenge, is that I was a day late. So we had a late start to the whole thing, but we caught up pretty quick.
Also, it was monsoon season, and Will didn't think to pack a rain jacket for whatever reason. No matter how many times prior we would mention it is monsoon season. So 2 of us had rain jackets. Whoever was driving was good. The people in the back were always getting wet because their arms were pretty much out the window because there were no side doors. And again, this was also something that was quite serious in the area of Kerala. That's the state that got hit with that monsoon very bad, and caused us to move the finish line a little bit further up to Bangalore.
We persevered. Cool. So yeah, that was some of the tough parts. Obviously, we also had a bunch of great moments. So we just wanted to share some of our favorite stories from the 2 weeks, favorite memories, some lifelong memories, if you will. This is one of my favorites. So this guy, just look at this guy. I'll just take a second. Look at his gold chains. He's the man. Lesh. And basically this happened on the day, I think it was like our 4th day driving, and we ended up going through a pretty big city called Surat that we really probably should have tried to avoid, but there was no good way to get around it. So we ended up just, going right into it and going right through it. And it was around noon. I remember asking the guys, I was driving and asked Will and Jared, like, can we eat lunch soon? Maybe on the other side, once we get out of all this terrible traffic, let's grab some lunch on the other side of the city. And within like 5 minutes of bringing lunch up, this guy pulls up next to us, and Jerry actually did an amazing job grabbing this picture. This is literally him being like, come to my house and have lunch. And I looked at the guys, I was like, we just talked about lunch. I felt like this really serendipitous moment, and I was like, yeah, let's go, why not? So he jumped in the front with me. He drove us over to his little neighborhood, like down a back alley. And we, went into his house with him up this super, just sort of like a rustic building complex. It was like 6 stories high. He was like telling everybody like hi and kind of just like proud that we were with him, and it was really cute. And then on the way up, I remember him being though like, this isn't my home, this is actually my office. He was trying to qualify that, and I was like, okay, whatever, man. And we get up to like the 6th floor, and he opens the door, and it's really just an empty room with 2 mattresses on the ground. And we were like, okay, cool, lunchtime, woo. But then, as we sat there, he was gonna make us some chai. We all definitely had that moment where we looked at each other and we were like, is this a terrible idea? Like, is that rickshaw getting robbed right now, or what is happening? Just, like that moment where it could have gone one of 2 ways kind of thing. But we played it cool. He actually got some cards out because there was a language barrier, and like, he was doing magic tricks. Jerry was doing magic tricks. And then his buddy showed up at lunch, and it was awesome. And at that moment, I think we all kind of took a deep breath and we're like, okay, this is just like only about lunch, and this is great. And we had a really fun lunch with them sitting on the floor. They actually gave me like a little baby stool because I'm not that flexible, couldn't sit on the floor so good. But it was a really like one of those amazing moments with a local guy who just was like trying to make a connection, trying to make new friends. And he's amazing. He's called the 52 card king. He's never lost in poker, and he speaks 50-50 English. Those were like our 2 favorite expressions of his. But and this was his buddy who brought us lunch, and his 15-year-old son came and Instagram storied the whole thing. It was a beautiful afternoon.
This is a good one. All right, so our friend over here on the right, his name is Rafiq. So earlier this morning, we had left Mumbai, or maybe a day out of Mumbai, but we were trying to get back on the back roads. As we said before, the traffic in Mumbai was horrible, and the best times we had driving was just in the middle of nowhere. It took 3 times as long, but the roads were just amazing through these like rice fields. And we woke up and Travis had this idea to go to this ferry, which may or may not have been there. I was actually against it. Super glad that we went with it. But
good idea.
This ferry in the morning, we got on the ferry, and this dude on the right was the only other person on that ferry. Travis and I talked to him like a little bit, but he didn't speak very good English. It was just a typical conversation of like, what the hell are you doing here? And we got off the ferry and started driving away, and he kind of waved us down and asked for a ride. So he hopped in the back, which was already crammed. And as we're driving down the road, he heard us talking about chai. So he asked if we wanted to stop. So we stopped at a chai hole, and then he went up and paid for the chais. And this is when we all looked at each other and were like, is this a little more involved than we thought it was originally? And we asked him where he was going, and he just, as we started driving, was like, it's only 30 kilometers away. So through these mountains, that's like an hour and a half. So Rafiq and Jarrett and I sat in the back of this rickshaw going through these really windy roads. We would actually be going up hills and have to hop out because there was too much weight and run up the hill alongside it. And it was hilarious. This guy sat with us for an hour and a half, and then he was quite a backseat driver. Telling Travis that he needed to honk more going around corners and stuff. He was our only hitchhiker of the trip, but so hilarious. Just that, like, I'll remember him for the rest of my life, and I'm not sure if he remembers us today, but it was just a really cool experience to give him. Thought was a ride down the street and turned into an hour and a half out of our way, but good story.
And this one is one just I get a lot of shit for. Is we stopped for tea. I went to go get a new SD card for my camera, and I came across these guys who are making chapati, which is this really delicious soft bread they use for a lot of their foods. And then they started teaching me how to make it, but I didn't realize that I didn't tell Travis or Will where I was going, and I also had the rickshaw keys with me, and I also lost track of time. So I remember getting a call from them, but my hands were covered in flour because I was learning how to make chapati, and all these locals had surrounded around me and were laughing because I kept on messing it up. And then I finally was like, okay, he keeps calling me, I'm going to answer. Will was pissed off because I wasn't telling him where I was. I said, okay, I'm just go find the 4G sign. And there's, I guess, like 15 of those in this little city. And anyways, I ended up finding them.
Everyone in India has a smartphone, so every single where you look, there's a 4G sign. And if you know anything about Jarrett, this is just such a typical Jerry story.
Whatever. I had a great time. So, and then
And
another
for the
little
record,
story is
and for the record, Travis and I do not know how to make chapati. Only Jarrett does. So
Never got
I
to
don't actually know how to make. This was just a fun moment as well. We had just learned the rules of cricket the night before, and then we drove by a cricket match that was happening in this small little town, and we decided to pull over and just watch and take pictures. The next thing we know, the announcer of the game, who had a microphone, calls us over and people start circling around, and they want us to start announcing the match, but I don't really know what's going on. They kept telling me the team names, but I couldn't pronounce it, and they kept asking me to make a prediction of the game, of who was going to win. And I kept saying, "Oh, those guys are going to win," and then pass the mic to Travis. But it was great. And what is Jeanette saying? Yes, I had data on my cell phone.
the one really funny part about this is we had a plan to play cricket. Like that was one of our like bucket list for India items, was to find some kids and play cricket. We didn't exactly get to do that, but this was a good compromise. And the funniest part was like Jarrett trying to pick a side, and both, like the one team was like, "Oh, come on, you didn't pick us." The other one was excited, and then Travis gets on and just goes with the safe bet of "I love India," and then everyone went crazy. But it was a really hilarious stop.
That's a good lesson to remember though. Just go with the country name when in doubt. People were super into that. All right, last category of a couple things just to share is our biggest takeaway and what we got from the trip. I think for all of us is 2 weeks that will stick with us for a very long time. So yeah, we'll get into this a little bit. Will, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I could talk about this all day long, but I think this picture is a pretty good one. The one thing I learned like the most is just how impactful like hospitality and smiling are. It sounds kind of obvious, but my grandfather actually had been to India a few times, and he always told me that we could learn a lot from them. And I honestly never had any idea of what he was talking about. I didn't know if he was like older and didn't like really have a real meaning behind it, but I totally understand what he means. Every single time we smiled and waved, you would get a smile and wave back. Every time that we would sit down somewhere, someone would come up and want us to just like have a really good time. And we experienced that the entire way. That first picture that we showed, it looks like I'm having a full-on conversation with those guys. They're all smiling, laughing at me. I'm smiling, laughing at them. That was just us broken down with gas on the side of the road. I do not speak any Hindi, as you could have guessed, and they do not speak any English. And it's just so amazing that, like, just from that little conversation of smiling, laughing, poking fun at each other, and, you can have, like, a very, very memorable experience for both sides. But the hospitality and just the smiles are, like, two of the biggest takeaways that I'll never forget, for sure.
Jerry, what you got?
Sure. I think, away from, I definitely agree with all that Will said, especially with the hospitality piece, but something that for this experience that made it so special that I didn't realize going into it was this idea of the crazy nature of driving an unreliable vehicle through areas you don't know, through a route that you're not sure about, puts you in these cities and situations that you probably wouldn't seek out on your own, these back roads, going and stopping at tea or having a breakdown and just sitting in the presence of other people who are helping you fix your rickshaw. And for me, that was one of the most special things, was just these moments with these people who I can't imagine myself having come across in any other type of vacation or travel setting. So it's this idea of embracing the unknown. It's this level 3 fun, which I know Travis is the king of, no pun intended. And yeah, it's just the people overall are fantastic.
Yeah, and I echo both these guys' thoughts. I think, kind of like what Jerry was saying, something that I kept thinking about during the trip is that we constantly put ourselves in situations where we needed help. And then just being in that situation, you have to kind of lean on the people around you. You're broken down, or you don't know where you are, or you don't know where to eat, or you don't know what this says on the menu when you get to the place where you're eating. And just all those moments where you have to kind of ask people for help. It showed so much about the country of India and the people there, because we were just helped. Like, there was a moment when, after we fixed that, the petrol thing where we were broken down, the next morning our rickshaw wouldn't start again because we flooded the engine. And some guy just walking by just jumped in and was like trying to help. And at that point, I think we'd all just sort of like recognize that when people are trying to help, there's no weird, like, secondhanded sort of hope that, like, they don't want anything in return. They're just basically trying to help, like, just because it's the right thing to do. So this guy helped us, and we were pushing the rickshaw down the road. He's yanking on the the starter, and then it finally kicked back on, and then he was just like, have a great day, and walked away. And like, that is so, representative, I think, of India for me, just the way that people are. They're just nice for the sake of being nice, and they give themselves. And I think they have that sort of idea that, just help everybody get ahead. It's kind of this community effort type of thing. So that's something I'll always hang on to and remember about the 2 weeks there. And yeah, what good people.
The one thing I want to just add to that real quickly is like, we were talking about this a little bit in the rickshaw, but like, we got to shout out the Adventurists too, because they knew that like they had India on their side for this. Like, you couldn't necessarily do this type of thing in every country in the world, but they know that in India, like same to what Travis was saying, everyone's going to help. You don't have to worry about that much thing. I mean, people might take advantage of you here and there in bigger cities, but they just want you to have a good time. They want you to enjoy your time in that country. And it's amazing that they could just rely on India. I think it's pretty cool. Their slogan is to make life a little less boring. And I think you could say that we accomplished that in that trip.
One way that I like to think about it too is we had this night when we first got to the coast where we got in really late and we decided to just walk over to the ocean. We sat on this bench for a minute, definitely just in the small town. So like the only 3 white guys probably in the entire town. And this group of 18, 19-year-old kids walked by, like 7 of them. And they did like a triple take, and then they got the courage to come back over and talk to us. And they were just so sweet. They were like the nicest kids ever. And they're just so happy to meet us and wanted us to enjoy their town and just wanted us to love India, and had all these cute questions. They were calling Will Justin Bieber. And it was just like a really fun little 20-minute interaction. And then I kept thinking after that, how would that have gone in reverse? Like if 3 guys were sitting somewhere in the States, 3 guys from India were sitting somewhere in the States, and a group of high school kids from the States walked by, how does that interaction go down? And I don't know, I just don't think it would be as good as it was for us in India, because the people there are just so genuinely like good-natured and kind. And I don't know, it's something that I thought about after all the time. But what a great place. And I know we're getting close to time, so we'll just wrap this up quick. You want to take these ones?
Sure. Yeah, we can fly through this. I know we're coming up on our time here. But the keys to success, like I talked about, welcoming the unknown. Any situation where a stranger would ask you to pull over and have a selfie, or if it's anything that you might not think you have time for, go for it. Prior to going, make sure you get the proper vaccinations and check into your visas. We almost ran into some situations there. And then if you can, practice driving stick shift beforehand, because for me it was like at least a day and a half learning curve trying to drive this thing, and added on stress of driving on the wrong side of the road, learning to drive manual, driving a rickshaw, cows flying everywhere. It's quite hectic. So if you can save yourself a little bit of that stress, practice that beforehand.
Willie?
This is great. The ways to get derailed. So I kind of, everyone knows that you shouldn't drink the water or eat like cut fruit. Travis decided to go to his gut on this one, and got sick once off of a mango lassi. The day he got sick, Jarrett was also sick, but the day after, when he started to feel better, he decided to go with the mango lassi again. It was a bold move, and he got sick again. So 2 days in a row. So maybe avoid the mango lassis. The tarp was huge. Everything would have been wet the entire time. So we did get that right as we were waiting for Travis. As we said, and the Adventurers said, don't hit the cows. Seriously, it might be the last thing you do in India, whether it's a fine, whether it's jail. There's serious consequences for that. Never, ever plan more than 1 day in advance. It was so amazing to just like have no plan. And I think it's cool that remote year allows you to do that too, for the time you have in a place. But if we woke up every day with a plan, it would have changed everything we did. And I probably tried to keep us like to an agenda more so than others, but I love that like kind of just the dynamic of the 3 of us pulled that in different directions for like a really just like good combination of what we needed to accomplish each day, but also just like allowing any situation to come to say yes to, and to like sidetrack us a couple hours. And then another thing that we really stuck by was convoying with more than one team. If you drive with 3 people, every time one stops, they all stop. And that just makes everything a little more stressful and take a little longer. We had this one guy that we were very honest with him that we didn't want to convoy, and he pretty much just followed us for like a couple days. And it was awesome because we called him the best driver in India. We called him Donkey Kong. Every time we would go through a terrible driving situation, look behind, J-Bone was right behind us. He was a hilarious addition to our crew over the trip. But yeah, convoys are never good.
Don't do it unless you're forced into it because the guy won't stop following you. But yeah, but we made it, as you see here. We just wanted to end with these evidence of our success at the finish line. Woo!
Pushing it across the finish line because the start and stop is difficult.
But we did it. We made it. And thanks for you guys for joining us on our little knowledge drop here. We can go back to get off.
We have one question. We got a question from
What's this question?
Michael. Yeah.
Constable, what's up, bro? Sorry, this is long. Do you think the experiences on this trip, meeting locals, going to places, would change how you guys travel in the future? I.e., will you more actively seek out those scenarios going forward? Let's be real, traveling with RY is pretty dang cushy for the most part. You don't find yourself in those situations unless you really try. True.
I think that's an interesting question because, I mean, like I said, I think that's a lot more possible in India than it is in a lot of places in the world. You know, maybe like in parts of like Mexico, that isn't the best idea, but I think it definitely will encourage me to do things a little more out there. The one thing that really resonated with me that actually Renee, who used to work for Remote Year, said to us like our first day is, you know, traveling these days is pretty normal, and it's kind of difficult to do something that's like a little more out there, and not only us but the Adventurists find a way to do that. And personally, I would like to do even another adventure with them, but I think it will definitely force me to like get out there a little more and you know, kind of be cautious, but also know that a lot of those situations are just genuine curiosity and hospitality that will definitely, I think, find some new adventures in the future for me.
Yeah, it's a test in it's a test in patience. It's a test in your ability to change your plans as they go. And if you have no plans, it's obviously much easier to do that. It's something that I have a new confidence of. I mean, I think driving vehicles now, I think maybe too much confidence in some point where if you go back to the US, you're going to try and just like pass around things you shouldn't pass. But I think it's just a lesson that you can go out and make your own adventures if you're willing to just let things happen and unfold as they will.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think the people that work with me on the experience side know this, that I'm a big believer in the idea that structure breeds creativity, but it's like how much structure you put into place. So I just really love what the Adventurists did of here's the start, here's the finish, fill in the in-between. So I think just having adventures like that, and, you know, we were set up with the Adventurists kind of making that happen for us. But I think also just as a traveler, you can do that, you know, decide like, all right, I'm gonna make it without flying from, you know, Bangkok to Hanoi, and then just fill in the in-between. And that would sort of, I think, lead you down that road of not really knowing what's going to happen on a day-to-day or week-to-week. But, you know, it's easy to just get the trap of, you know, booking Airbnbs well ahead of time and then buying your flights well ahead of time. But I think when you leave some sort of blank space and you don't have too much structure, then all the creativity gets filled in there, and you never know what's going to happen. And I personally love traveling like that. And yeah, this reminded me of how much fun it is, especially with two bozos like this. It's great. Last question, then we're going to let you guys go. But amazing what you guys did. What was your biggest learning from the trip? Biggest learning? What do you got? I'll let you guys go first.
That's a really tough one. I mean, it was funny. The Adventurists asked everyone to put a line at the finish line for what they like, kind of the similar statement. And ours was diesel makes you go twice as fast, which isn't necessarily true. But I mean, I don't know that I have one biggest learning. I mean, other than just that, like, the encouragement to like have conversations and have like, you know, confrontations and just like different experiences with people that, you know, you cannot talk to. I think there's times in the past that I've avoided that because I knew I couldn't converse with someone like in the English language, but there's so many other ways to talk to people. Card tricks, and now that I know, is like an amazing way to solve that. But it, like I said, just the smiles. I think there's like a lot of ways to get smiles out of people and just for really lasting experiences. One of Travis's favorite in every local stop that we had was just to do a slap pound with the kids. And like, that seems so little to us, but that's something that they will probably remember for a very, very long time, if not forever. And I think it's just like a really cool little thing of just like going out of your way to try to connect with people that you know you can't just by speaking.
Mine would be from the perspective of, I guess if you're someone who likes photography, I had more fun in India shooting photos than I've had anywhere else because the people are so willing to let you take a photo of them. And a lot of those like photographs, if you see someone face on, it's just because they would even request it. And you can get up to them and you can take a photograph, you can practice. And sitting on the side of a rickshaw for 2 weeks straight, I mean, we're talking and listening to music. It's something where I just leaned out the window the whole time and would just take photos on the side. So if you are looking for a place to go and practice photography, it's definitely such a great place to to learn.
I'd say my big one is that if you give your WhatsApp number to random children in India, they will call you and they will text you a lot. No, I'm just kidding, but that's true. I think we all did that at some points, and like I just get called all, like I get like notes all the time now from kids, but whatever. I think the first one that popped into mind, it's not like necessarily learning, because like level 3 fun is something that I've tried to spread throughout remote year just as like an idea, but it's like a really good big reinforcement of just the truth behind that. Because like Will said at the end, when they had everybody like clocking what time they got to the finish line and one line to write down your best story of the trip, and to a team, 80 teams, was just the worst thing that happened to them. So it's like their lifetime memory from those 2 weeks was like the time that like they hit a semi truck or like flipped their rickshaw, or just whenever something terrible happened, that was like their favorite story from the trip. So just really reminded me that that's so true when you're traveling and you think something really bad is happening, just to kind of remember that that's going to be a life memory that you're going to tell your grandkids someday. So should not lose sight of that, and it makes you be a little happier, I think, in the moment when it's going down. Also, yeah, Jerry working on a documentary. So if you want to like see more footage of us being idiots in India, that's coming on his YouTube channel. Go and subscribe. But no, thank you guys for all joining. And yeah, it's fun to talk about. Obviously, I'm sure you can hit any of us up on Slack or outside of this knowledge drop if you want to hear more stories, or if you want to see more pictures, definitely go find Jerry on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. But yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Also, one quick thing, check out Cool Earth, check out the Adventurists, 2 amazing companies. Very, very different missions, but that I think align very well, and I think they have a lot of cool things to offer.
Good shout out. And last shout out to Puneet from Balboa, who came all the way over to Mumbai the Saturday night that we were in Mumbai with that picture of the fancy ropes. He drove all the way over to just have dinner with us, and it was so nice to pick his brain.
Big shout out to Puneet. Yeah, that was so fantastic. That shows the value of the remote year community right there, actually, that he did that, and just an all-around great guy. Thank you.
Wouldn't even let us pay for dinner. What a guy. What an amazing guy.
Too nice. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, fam. See you here 2 weeks' time.